That night was supposed to be the beginning of forever. Fairy lights twinkled overhead like captured stars, and my navy blue cocktail dress made me feel like absolute royalty. Ryan had just kissed me in front of 60 of our closest friends and family, declaring his eternal love. Everything was perfect. My heart was so full it might burst. But when I couldn't find him or my sister Emma anywhere at the party, I decided to check upstairs. I never imagined that climbing those stairs would shatter everything I believed about love and family. Before I dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from tonight. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already, because what happened next changed everything about how I see trust and betrayal. Let me paint you the picture of what my life looked like before that devastating night. My name is Sophie, and at 28, I thought I had everything figured out. I was living in Chicago working as a marketing manager at a growing tech startup. The job was demanding but rewarding, and I genuinely loved the creative challenges it brought every day. Ryan had been the center of my world for 3 beautiful years. At 31, he was an architect with this incredible ability to see potential in everything around him. He could walk into any space and immediately envision how to make it better, more functional, more beautiful. That is exactly what I thought he had done with my life. He saw all my rough edges and loved me anyway, making me believe I could become the best version of myself. We had been engaged for 6 months, and our wedding was planned for the following spring. Every detail had been carefully considered and lovingly chosen. We had booked the most gorgeous venue overlooking Lake Michigan, found the perfect caterer who specialized in farm-to-table cuisine, and I had already found my dream dress. It was everything I had imagined since I was a little girl, playing bride in my grandmother's old lace curtains. My family dynamics were complicated but loving in their own way. My parents, Margaret and David, were both successful attorneys who had built their practice from nothing into one of the most respected family law firms in the city. They were hardworking, principled people who had given my sister and me every advantage in life. Education was paramount in our household, and excellence was not just encouraged but expected. Emma, my older sister at 32, had always been the golden child. She was a pediatric surgeon at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, and our parents could not have been prouder. Throughout our childhood, Emma effortlessly excelled at everything she touched. Perfect grades, captain of the debate team, valedictorian full scholarship, to Northwestern, then medical school. She was brilliant, beautiful, and seemingly had everything anyone could want. But here's the thing about Emma and me. Despite all the inevitable comparisons and the way our parents unconsciously held her up as the standard I should aspire to, we were genuinely close. She was my big sister, my protector, my confidant. When other kids made fun of my braces in middle school, Emma told them off. When I struggled with calculus in high school, she spent hours tutoring me. When I had my heart broken for the first time in college, she drove 4 hours just to bring me ice cream and listen to me cry. 8 months before my engagement party, Emma's own seemingly perfect life had crumbled. Her husband of 7 years, a fellow surgeon named James, had been having an affair with one of the nurses at their hospital. The divorce was brutal and public within their medical community. Emma was devastated not just by the betrayal, but by the humiliation of everyone knowing her business. I immediately invited her to stay with Ryan and me while she got back on her feet emotionally. Our apartment had a comfortable guest room, and I thought having family around would help both her healing process and bring us even closer together. Emma seemed so grateful, constantly thanking me for opening my home to her during such a difficult time. She helped with groceries, cooked dinner when I worked late, and even helped me plan details for the engagement party. Looking back now, I realize there were signs I completely missed or chose to ignore. Ryan had seemed a bit distant the past 2 weeks leading up to the party. He would come home later than usual, claiming big deadlines at the architectural firm. He was less talkative during dinner and seemed to always be texting someone about work matters. When I asked if everything was all right, He assured me it was just project stress and that things would calm down after we got through the engagement celebration. The party planning itself had been a labor of love. I spent 2 solid months organizing every single detail. We decided to host it at my family's estate in the suburbs, a beautiful property my parents had owned for 15 years. The backyard was perfect for entertaining with mature oak trees that created natural ambiance and enough space for dining tables, a dance floor, and a small stage for toasts. I worked with Emma to choose the menu, select the flowers, and coordinate the timeline for the evening. She had excellent taste and seemed genuinely excited to help make my night special. We spent an entire Saturday shopping for my outfit, finally settling on a navy blue cocktail dress that was elegant, but not too formal. Emma said it brought out my eyes and made me look radiant. Ryan would love it, she assured me. The florist delivered white roses and greenery that morning, and I spent hours arranging them throughout the space. Fairy lights were strung between the trees, creating a magical canopy overhead. White linens covered the rental tables, and votive candles flickered on every surface. By 6 o'clock that evening, when the first guests began to arrive, everything looked absolutely perfect. The early part of the evening was everything I had dreamed it would be. Friends from college mingled with family members and coworkers. Ryan looked incredibly handsome in his charcoal gray suit, and he seemed to be in much better spirits than he had been recently. He held my hand, introduced me proudly to people he had not met before, and gave a beautiful impromptu speech about how lucky he felt to have found his soulmate. My parents were beaming with pride as they watched us together. Even though they had always been somewhat reserved with their emotions, I could see how happy they were for me. Emma looked stunning in a burgundy dress and seemed to be enjoying herself, chatting easily with various guests and appearing more relaxed than she had since her divorce. About an hour into the party, I noticed something that made my stomach flutter with unease. I was talking with my college roommate Sarah, who was serving as my maid of honor, when she asked where Ryan had gone. I looked around the backyard and realized I had not seen him for at least 30 minutes. That was unusual. Ryan was typically very social at parties, especially our own engagement celebration. He enjoyed meeting new people and had been looking forward to this night for weeks. I excused myself from the conversation and began casually walking around the party looking for him without wanting to appear worried. I checked the bar area where some of his architect colleagues were gathered, but they said they had not seen him recently. I looked by the appetizer table where my dad and uncle were deep in conversation about some legal case, but no Ryan. I even checked the small bathroom downstairs that guests were using, but it was empty. As I continued my search, I realized that Emma was also nowhere to be seen. That struck me as odd, because she had been actively participating in hostess duties, making sure guests had drinks and introducing people who did not know each other. Emma was naturally social and gracious, and it was unlike her to disappear from a family gathering without mentioning where she was going. I told myself not to read too much into it. There were plenty of innocent explanations. Maybe Ryan had gotten an important phone call about work and stepped somewhere quiet to handle it. Maybe Emma was feeling overwhelmed by all the social interaction and needed a few minutes alone to recharge. Maybe they were together somewhere, and Ryan was asking Emma for advice about something related to the wedding planning. But even as I tried to rationalize their simultaneous absence, something felt wrong. It was an instinct I could not shake, a cold prickle of anxiety that started in my chest and slowly spread throughout my body. I had always prided myself on being intuitive about people and situations, and every internal alarm I possessed was going off. Sarah appeared at my side again, holding 2 glasses of champagne. She immediately noticed my expression and asked what was wrong. When I explained that I could not find either Ryan or Emma, her face showed the same concern I was feeling. "How long have they been gone?" she asked, scanning the crowd herself. "I do not know exactly. Maybe 30 or 40 minutes. I replied, accepting the champagne but not drinking it. Sarah suggested we check inside the house. Maybe they were helping with something in the kitchen, Or perhaps Emma had gotten a call from the hospital about one of her patients. There could be a dozen perfectly reasonable explanations that had nothing to do with the growing dread I was experiencing. We walked toward the house together, but as we reached the back door, I told Sarah I wanted to look upstairs first. My parents' house was large with several bedrooms and sitting areas on the second floor. If someone wanted privacy for a phone call, or just needed a quiet moment, that would be the logical place to go. The hardwood stairs creaked softly under my feet as I climbed alone, leaving Sarah downstairs to check the kitchen and main level areas. The second floor was dimly lit with only a small hallway light providing illumination. Most of the bedroom doors were closed, which was normal since my parents always kept guest rooms tidy and private during parties. I checked the hall bathroom first, pushing the door open and calling softly for Ryan. Empty. I moved to the small sitting room that my mother used as her home office, thinking maybe Emma had needed a quiet space to decompress. Also empty. As I stood in the hallway trying to decide where to look next, I heard something that made my blood freeze. It was coming from behind the closed door of my parents' master bedroom at the end of the hall. At first I could not identify the sound, but as I moved closer, the horrible realization began to dawn on me. Those were not the sounds of conversation or someone making a phone call. They were intimate sounds. Unmistakable sounds that should never ever be coming from my parents' bedroom during my engagement party. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. Part of me wanted to turn around and pretend I had never heard anything. Part of me wanted to convince myself I was mistaken, that my anxiety was making me imagine things that were not really happening. But I knew. Even before I saw anything, I knew exactly what I was going to find behind that door. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure whoever was inside would hear it and stop what they were doing before I could confirm my worst fears. I turned the knob as quietly as possible and pushed the door open just a crack. The room was dark, except for moonlight streaming through the windows, but there was enough light to see everything I needed to see. Emma and Ryan were on my parents' bed, completely naked, lost in each other in the most intimate way possible. They had not heard me open the door and were completely oblivious to my presence. For several seconds that felt like hours, I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to process what I was witnessing. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment or a drunken mistake. The way they moved together, the familiarity of their touches, the comfort they clearly felt with each other's bodies, all of it told me this had been going on for much longer than just tonight. I must have made some small sound because suddenly they both froze and turned toward the door. Emma's face went completely white when she saw me, and she let out a small scream as she scrambled to pull the bedsheet over herself. Ryan's expression went through several rapid changes: confusion, recognition, and then absolute panic. The next few moments were a complete blur of chaos and emotional devastation. Emma was frantically reaching for her clothes while trying to stay covered by the sheet, her face red with embarrassment and panic. Ryan jumped up from the bed, grabbing his pants and trying to put them on while simultaneously attempting to approach me. "Sophie, wait. Please let me explain," he stammered, his voice shaking almost as much as his hands as he struggled with his clothing. "This is not what it looks like. This was a huge mistake. I love you. Please just give me a chance to explain what happened." I backed away from both of them, my legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. The shock was so overwhelming that I could not form words or even coherent thoughts. All I could do was stare at these two people who were supposed to love me more than anyone else in the world, trying to understand how they could have betrayed me so completely. Emma finally managed to get her dress back on and stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Sophie, I am so sorry. You have to believe me. We never meant for this to happen. It just happened tonight. We were both emotional, and we made a terrible mistake." But even as she spoke, I could see the lie in her eyes. This was not something that had just happened tonight. The comfort they had shown with each other, the way they had moved together, The fact that they had chosen my parents' bed in my family's house during my own engagement party, all of it pointed to something that had been building for much longer than just one evening. I ran to the bathroom across the hall and barely made it to the toilet before I started vomiting. The combination of shock betrayal and pure emotional devastation was more than my body could handle. I locked the door behind me and sank to the floor, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. Through the door, I could hear Emma and Ryan having a frantic, whispered conversation in the hallway. I caught fragments of their words. "What do we do now? She cannot tell everyone tonight. Maybe if we explain that we were both drunk. This will ruin everything." The fact that their immediate concern was managing the situation rather than the pain they had caused me made everything so much worse. They were not thinking about how to make this right or how to help me process this betrayal. They were thinking about damage control and self-preservation. After several minutes, I managed to pull myself together enough to unlock the bathroom door and face them. They were both standing in the hallway, fully dressed now, but looking absolutely terrified about what would happen next. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, but surprisingly steady. Emma and Ryan looked at each other, and I could see them having a silent conversation about how much truth they were willing to admit to. "Sophie, it really was just tonight." Emma started, but I cut her off. "Do not lie to me anymore," I said, my voice getting stronger with anger. "I saw how comfortable you were together. I saw how familiar you were with each other. How long has this been going on?" The silence stretched between us for what felt like forever. Finally, Emma broke down completely and admitted the truth through her tears. "About 6 weeks," she whispered. "It started a few weeks after I moved in with you. We never planned it. We were both going through difficult times, and we were spending a lot of time together while you were working late, and it just happened. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of them sneaking around behind my back while I was planning our engagement party and our wedding. 6 weeks of Ryan coming home late and being distant because he was carrying on an affair with my sister. 6 weeks of Emma helping me choose flowers and menu items while she was sleeping with my fiancé in the very apartment where I had given her refuge during her own marital crisis. The betrayal was so complete and so calculated that I could barely comprehend it. These were not two people who had made a single terrible mistake in a moment of weakness. These were two people who had been systematically deceiving me for weeks while accepting my love, my trust, and my hospitality. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs. My parents appeared at the top of the staircase, clearly wondering why the three of us had been missing from the party for so long. My mother took one look at our faces and immediately knew something serious had happened. "What is going on up here?" she asked, her attorney instincts immediately activated. "People are starting to ask where everyone went." Emma immediately broke down again and told our parents everything. Through her tears, she explained that she and Ryan had been having an affair, that I had caught them together, and that she was terrified about what would happen next. My father's face went through several emotions: shock, disappointment, and then immediate concern about how to handle the situation. But instead of comforting me or expressing outrage at what had been done to me, his first instinct was damage control. "We need to think carefully about how to handle this," he said in his measured attorney voice. "There are 60 people downstairs who came here to celebrate. Emma, you have just been through a very public divorce, and your medical practice depends on your reputation in the community." My mother nodded in agreement. "Sophie, I know this is devastating, but we need to consider what is best for everyone involved. Perhaps you could simply announce that the engagement is off without going into specific details about why." I stood there in complete disbelief, listening to my parents suggest that I should protect the people who had just destroyed my life. Even now, even in the moment of my ultimate betrayal and humiliation, they were asking me to sacrifice my truth for Emma's sake. "You want me to lie?" I asked, my voice getting stronger with each word. "You want me to protect them after what they have done to me?" "We want you to think about what is best for the whole family," my father replied. "Emma's career could be seriously damaged if this becomes public knowledge. Ryan's architectural firm has several family-oriented clients who might not understand this kind of situation. Sometimes the mature thing to do is handle these matters privately." That was the moment I realized that nothing had changed. Even now, even in the most devastating moment of my life, my family was asking me to be the accommodating one, the understanding one, the one who puts everyone else's needs ahead of her own pain and dignity. Something inside me shifted in that moment. For my entire life, I had been the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed over family tensions and made sure everyone else was comfortable. I had accepted being compared to Emma, celebrated her achievements even when they overshadowed my own accomplishments, and always put family harmony ahead of my own needs. But standing there in that hallway, looking at the three people who were supposed to love and protect me more than anyone else in the world, asking me to lie about my own betrayal to protect my betrayers, I felt something I had never experienced before. It was clarity, pure and simple. I straightened my shoulders, wiped my tears, and looked directly at each of them with a calmness that surprised even me. "No," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I will not protect the people who betrayed me. I will not sacrifice my truth for anyone's reputation. I will not be the one who accommodates and keeps quiet, so everyone else can be comfortable with their terrible choices." Emma started crying harder. "Sophie, please. You do not understand what this will do to me. I have already lost my marriage. If this gets out, it could affect my medical practice. Patients trust their doctors to have good judgment and moral character." Ryan stepped forward, desperation clear in his voice. "Baby, I know I messed up terribly, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can figure this out. Do not throw away 3 years over one mistake." "One mistake?" I asked, staring at him in disbelief. 6 weeks of lying to my face is not one mistake. 6 weeks of sleeping with my sister while living in my apartment is not one mistake. 6 weeks of letting me plan our engagement party while you were betraying me in the worst possible way is not one mistake. My parents looked increasingly uncomfortable as they realized I was not going to be convinced to handle this quietly. My father tried one more time to appeal to what he thought was my reasonable nature. "Sophie, I understand you are hurt and angry, and you have every right to be. But please think about this carefully. Once you make this public, you cannot take it back. There will be consequences for everyone involved." "There should be consequences," I replied. "There should be consequences for people who cheat and lie and betray the people who love them most. Why should I be the one to protect them from those consequences?" I turned and walked toward the staircase with Emma, Ryan, and my parents following behind me in a panic. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, I could see the party continuing in the backyard through the windows. People were laughing, dancing, and enjoying themselves, completely unaware that the guests of honor were upstairs dealing with a life-destroying crisis. Sarah appeared in the hallway, clearly worried about how long I'd been gone. She took one look at my face and immediately knew that whatever I had found upstairs was devastating. "Sophie, what happened?" she asked, moving toward me with concern. Instead of answering her directly, I walked straight through the house toward the backyard where all our guests were gathered. I could hear Emma pleading behind me. "Please, Sophie, do not do this. Please think about what you are doing." But I had thought about it. For the first time in my life, I was thinking clearly about what I deserved and what kind of person I wanted to be. I was tired of being the one who made everything easier for everyone else at the expense of my own dignity and truth. I walked directly to the small stage area where the microphone was set up for toasts and gently tapped it to get everyone's attention. The music stopped and gradually all 60 guests turned toward me with smiling faces, expecting another romantic speech or announcement about wedding plans. Ryan appeared at the edge of the crowd, his face pale with panic. Emma was hanging back by the house, crying but unable to leave. My parents stood frozen, watching their worst fears about to unfold. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate what I thought was the beginning of my marriage. I began, my voice carrying clearly across the backyard. Instead, you have all witnessed the end of my engagement and my relationship with my sister. The crowd went completely silent. I could see confusion and shock spreading across faces as people tried to process what I was saying. About an hour ago, I went upstairs looking for my fiancé Ryan and my sister Emma, and I found them in bed together. They have been having an affair for 6 weeks, conducting their relationship in my home while I planned this party and our wedding. Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people looked at Ryan, who was standing frozen with his mouth slightly open. Others looked toward Emma, who had completely broken down and was sobbing by the house. I have learned tonight that blood does not automatically mean loyalty, and love without respect means nothing. I have also learned that some people will ask you to sacrifice your truth to protect their comfort, and that is never acceptable. I took Ryan's engagement ring off my finger and walked directly to where he stood in the crowd. The circle of guests parted as I approached him, and I placed the ring in his palm without a word. "The party is over," I announced. "Thank you for your time." The aftermath was immediate and dramatic. Some guests began gathering their things and leaving quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Others approached me with expressions of support and sympathy, patting my shoulder and telling me how sorry they were. Emma ran into the house, and I could hear her crying hysterically from the kitchen. Ryan followed her, which proved my point perfectly about where his true loyalties lay. Several of my college friends surrounded me with hugs and assurances that I had done the right thing. My parents were furious. My father approached me with his jaw set in anger, speaking in a low voice so the remaining guests could not hear. "That was completely unnecessary, Sophie. You have humiliated this entire family for no good reason. There were mature ways to handle this situation that did not involve destroying everyone's reputation." "I handled it honestly," I replied. "I told the truth. If the truth is humiliating for Emma and Ryan, that is because what they did was humiliating. I am not responsible for protecting them from the natural consequences of their choices." My mother was equally upset. "You have just made it impossible for Emma to show her face in this community. How is she supposed to continue her medical practice when everyone knows about this? That is her problem to solve," I said. "She should have thought about that before she decided to sleep with my fiancé." Within a week, Emma and Ryan were officially together, showing absolutely no shame about their relationship or how it had started. They seemed to feel that since everything was out in the open now, they might as well embrace their new reality together. My parents continued to pressure me for months to forgive and forget for the sake of family unity. They suggested family counseling holiday gatherings, where we could all move past this, and repeatedly told me that holding grudges was not healthy for anyone involved. But I had discovered something powerful that night. I had learned what it felt like to value my own truth more than other people's comfort, and I was not willing to give that up. I moved into my own apartment within 2 weeks, throwing myself into my work with newfound energy and focus. The promotion I had been hoping for came through 3 months later, making me the youngest senior marketing director in my company's history. I started therapy to process not just the betrayal, but the family dynamics that had led me to always prioritize everyone else's needs over my own. Through counseling, I began to understand that the engagement party incident was not an isolated event but part of a lifelong pattern where my feelings and needs had been consistently minimized. 6 months after that devastating night, I was genuinely happy for the first time in years. I had built stronger friendships, learned to set healthy boundaries, and discovered what it meant to truly respect myself. I even started dating again, but with a much clearer understanding of what I would and would not accept in a relationship. I gradually rebuilt a relationship with my parents, but on my terms and with clear conditions about how they could treat me. I went completely no contact with Emma, which was painful, but necessary for my own healing and growth. Looking back now, I can honestly say that discovering my fiancé and sister together was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because I enjoyed the pain and betrayal, but because it showed me who I really was and who I wanted to become. I learned that protecting your own truth is more important than protecting other people's comfort. Sometimes the people who claim to love you will ask you to make yourself smaller, so they can avoid the consequences of their actions, and that is never acceptable. Real family does not ask you to stay silent about your own pain. Real love does not require you to sacrifice your dignity for someone else's reputation. That night, I stopped being the person who always accommodates others at the expense of my own well-being, and I started becoming the person who stands up for herself and demands the respect she deserves. I am not bitter anymore. I am grateful. That betrayal showed me exactly who I was and who I wanted to become. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you directly to the best version of yourself. Have you ever been in a situation where your family asked you to stay quiet about something that hurt you deeply? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life stories about finding your strength in difficult situations. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that their truth matters more than other people's comfort. Thank you so much for listening, and remember that you deserve relationships built on honesty, respect, and genuine love.